I decided to do another video, an update video on basically the greatest loan modification that I've ever seen in the 13 years that I've been doing loan modifications for thousands and thousands of people. I have noticed that this FHA COVID-19 advanced loan modification is the greatest loan modification that I've ever seen. There's only one problem with it, and that it's only available for people that are 90 days late. Now, we need to talk about what that means and what people are thinking about doing, which is basically something called a strategic default, which is when you purposely stop paying in order to trigger loan modification. We're going to talk about all those things in just 2 minutes. However, before we do that, I really want you to like this video and subscribe to my channel, Debt Law, Survival Guide for the Desperate Debtor, so I keep making these videos and I keep following up on all these very specific loan modification devices and programs, things that are existing that did not exist before, but the government is developing now in hopes of staving off a huge foreclosure wave that nobody wants. Again, my name is Diego Mendez. I'm a loan modification, foreclosure, and bankruptcy lawyer here in Miami, Florida. I've been doing this kind of law for 13 years. I've helped a lot of people. A lot of people will still lose their homes even with these loan modification programs, but a lot of people won't. I'm hoping that by watching these videos, you get a good sense of what's out there, and you know all your rights, and you know how you can pursue loan modifications now that we're coming out of the end of the forbearances and moving into a regular economy. So FHA has devised a loan modification program, which I think is brilliant because it takes out all the uncertainty of applying for loan modification based on income. Basically, what this new loan modification program does is it reduces the principal and interest portion of your payment by 25%. It takes out the documentation portion of the loan modification application, which is the portion that would get people into trouble. When they could not apply and they would submit documents and then the documents would get rejected and all these different things would happen. That doesn't exist in this situation, and it makes you current, which is the most important part of any loan modification. It stops the foreclosure process and reinstates your loan. That is the purpose of loan modification, which is not necessarily to give you a better deal on your mortgage, but to stop any foreclosure process in its track so that you can catch up with your payments through the swift flick of a pen and you can move forward with your life. Now, the only issue with this loan modification, and the thing that people need to understand, is that this loan modification is only available for people who are 90 days or more late. For these folks, this is a great thing because if you're 90 days late, you're definitely stressed as to what's going to happen with your life because you don't know if you're ever going to be able to afford your house or you're ever going to be able to catch up with your payments, which is an extremely stressful situation for people who are living that. Most of my clients, actually all of my clients who have problems with their mortgages are in this situation. Now, the problem is that there's still a huge number of people who are less than 90 days late or who are current, who are in what's called imminent default. Imminent default means that you're going to default because you know that your income is over, that you're not going to be able to continue paying. Maybe you've been using your savings, maybe you've been borrowing money, you've been using your credit cards. There's different ways that people survive in these situations, but that's all come to an end. There's no more money, there's no more anything. So those folks are looking at their situation and they're thinking, well, what am I going to do? Now, these people and other people who maybe are in a different situation or who just want a lower payment are looking at something what's called a strategic default. Maybe you didn't know this term existed, but I'm going to explain to you what this is. This is basically purposely stopping your mortgage payments in order to trigger a loan modification program like this one, which requires a 90-day late. In 2008, a lot of people were doing that because the only way you could get a loan modification at that point was if you were late. There was no such thing as a mortgage modification for people who were current. There are mortgage modifications now for people who are current. However, they're not as good as this one with the instant 25% reduction in payment. So a lot of people are considering, okay, well, maybe I'll just stop paying for 90 days and I will then at that point qualify for this loan modification. I have it right here. It's not a good idea. Loan modifications are for people who are in financial hardship situations. Now, in my experience, most people who come to me, at least, already have a situation where they stop paying their mortgages, but they've also stopped paying their credit cards, they've stopped paying other bills. So really, the idea of, this, what I'm going to talk about next, really doesn't apply to them. However, if they came to me and they were current and they said to me, well, I want to strategically default because I would benefit from a loan modification, I would strongly advise against it, primarily because the destruction of your credit, your FICO score, is almost instantaneous. You will look at a 150 to 200 point drop in your FICO score when you stop your mortgage payment. The mortgage payment is probably the most important portion of these scores, and when that happens, they know that you are in a bad financial situation. So your FICO score drops. At the same time, all of your other credit cards who continuously monitor your credit, even though you don't know that, but they do, they see that you stop your mortgage payment, so therefore they suddenly drop your credit limits to zero, so any credit limit you had is gone, and they'll raise your default rates and they'll raise your interest rates, and your minimum payments will shoot through the roof. So a lot of people in this situation can't afford their minimum payments, so they stop their credit card payments. That is a very bad situation, which could force you into a bankruptcy. So be very careful playing around with your mortgage, because the effects will be severe for your credit. The other thing is that it's not clear if they require any kind of hardship letter. So it's kind of hard to tell a bank that you just stopped paying because you just wanted this lower payment. The banks might require you to explain a little bit. Even though there's no documentation, they might still require a phone call, and you're going to be lying to the bank. You say, well, I just wanted a lower payment. I could afford the other payment, but I figured I would just go for this lower payment. I didn't really care about my credit. Those are the things to think about. You don't want to strategically default. Now, again, if you are in a situation where you're going to default anyway, and your credit cards haven't been paid for a while, and it's really just kind of, you're kind of living in this limbo, this credit limbo, waiting to see what happens, well then all the stuff I just said really doesn't apply to you. But you can go off and apply and ask for this FHA COVID-19 advanced loan modification, which again, in my opinion, is the greatest loan modification that's ever been devised, primarily because it doesn't require any documentation and it has the greatest drop in payment. It's a minimum 25%, which means it could actually be more, the reduction in principal and interest payment. The other programs are set at 20%, like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, only at 20%. FHA is a minimum of 25%. So that's where they start. They could give you more. I'm not really sure how they determine how much more, but who knows? And whatever it is, you take it. So again, my name is Diego Mendez. I'm a bankruptcy loan modification and foreclosure lawyer here in Miami, Florida. I've been doing this kind of law for a long time, for about 13 years, focused in on this type of stuff. I've been doing my show for a little over 6 months, and I have received a lot of questions and a lot of comments and a lot of focused inquiries about what I talk about and the things that I talk about, which I very much enjoy because it helps me be a better lawyer. It helps me understand and learn more about these things the things that people are talking about, and then what people have on their minds right now as the COVID's coming to an end and we're moving into a different economy. Please subscribe to my channel, Debt Law, Survival Guide for the Desperate Debtor, and like my videos, because I'll keep making these videos for everybody who has situations that they can't control with their mortgages. I'm here to assist you in terms of giving you information. Hopefully the stuff that I talk about does guide you and put you in a better place than you were before you watched the YouTube show. So again, like my videos, and I'm here to help. Thank you very much.